Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, beginning of the end of religions. Getting rid of those old superstitions. Why are we still hanging on to these things? Do we not have better philosophy? Do we not have better science? Still, some insist. Ancient people with less information made better decisions. I don't know where that comes from. Peace and respect, Marty. Welcome. Thanks for dropping by. I know you're going to be half listening because you're working, but that's okay. I love that you are sweet enough to at least pop up in the chat. That's nice. All right, guys. Going to be reviewing. Okay, first, let me say, I am not trying to pick on people. I'm not. I'm a fan of human beings. I really am. But I want them to be happy. I want them to be well adjusted. I want them to be successful. And when people aren't good at critical thinking, their map of reality becomes, well, it doesn't even become, it starts fundamentally as flawed. And we're supposed to refine that as we go forward, looking for new evidence to disprove old ideas, accepting the new ideas. And that's how we get better adjusted to reality, have more success, less frustration, less anger by accepting reality. That's the whole idea here. So when someone is thinking dogmatically, it's very difficult for them to be skeptical and critical. And I'm trying to point out to people when they're not being skeptical and critical. And of course, they'll get very, very defensive, and their brain sometimes gets, closer to fight mode. Very few will flee, but they'll get closer to fight mode, and their logic circuits will disengage because of the emotion. Well, why are they so deeply emotive? Well, that's pretty easy to explain. If I invented something whole cloth, and you come to me and you said, Richard, that widget is a piece of crap. That's a terrible widget. It's not going to work. And here's the reasons why. Well, then I'm going to get defensive because I believe in my widget, and that's something of me. So I'll be defensive about my widget, and that makes sense. However, if you came to me and you said, Richard, Tesla's widget was a piece of crap and it wouldn't work, and here's why. We could just openly talk about it. Why? Because it's not my invention. I'd be fine with that. I wouldn't feel like you were attacking me. So rationally, it seems to me that people get so defensive because they invented the God. They invented it, whole cloth. So they take it as an attack on themselves instead of talking about logic. Peace and respect, SFB Mod and or Joel. Greetings, my friend. Would love to help improve your widgets. I need my widgets improved. I want my widgets to be the best possible widgets. I don't want half widgets that work halfway. Who would want that? Oh, yeah. People who are indoctrinated want just that. Peace and respect, Sterling. So I'm not picking on a person. I'm not. Don't take this as picking on a person. I'm picking on an idea. Here's the idea. That is correct, Joel. That is correct. Okay. So here we are. We're in Maximus of... What's the name of this? Maximus of Jerusalem, I think is the guy. That's what he's called historically. Sometime in the past, people didn't have surnames. So they name what town they were from. If that gives you an idea of how old this writing is, guy didn't have a last name, something like that. All right. And come on, where's the little cursor thing? There we go. And here it is. Title of this, which I want you to know that I allowed Daniel of Burning Bushes to select the topic. and the church father and of their writings, what he was going to read, and then read that. And at first blush, and this is my first time at his suggestion and logically, that we both review this in our own spare time and then come together and talk about our observations about it. So at first blush, when he first read this, I said, okay, there's a problem with this. Let me say what it is. And we didn't really get time to engage. To be fair to him, he didn't have much time at the time. That was a lot of word usage of the word time. Sorry. But here it is. From the book Concerning Matter, in the defense of the proposition that matter is created and is not the cause of evil. So this is something like, whoa, you can't move your cursor, Richard, to go and hit somebody backstage and bring them up if you still have that button clicked. You have to unclick that first.
Hello.
Midnight. Oh, hello, Midnight. Thanks for bringing yourself in. If I knew you could do that, I wouldn't have bothered to change screens. How are you?
Good. Just for future reference, I've been on Sammy's I don't know, account or team or whatever for a while, so that's why I was able to add myself in.
Obviously, you're right.
Usually it
Obviously.
does it automatically for some reason, but I had to like press the button to get in.
Yeah, I don't
But
know what the
hello
difference
again.
there is. Hello again. Hello again. Hello. Peace and respect, or peas and carrots. B.S. Lewis, also our dying son. Also Odin. Welcome, guys.
Yes.
Hope you like this presentation. I'm trying to talk about logic. Of course, in the side chat, I will be reading of it. I have a monitor screen up. So even if I'm on a different screen, I'll still be able to read what you're writing. If you tag me, please tag me if you speak directly to me.
I saw you
What do you
live and
think
I
so far,
figured
Midnight?
I
What's that?
literally just clicked, so I don't know what you're talking about. It does say
Whoa.
you're reviewing Daniel, I think, right?
Okay, so here's what happened. I was on his show and I said, look, the church fathers are wrong. Okay. And he says, I believe, he made like some kind of a blanket statement. This is not perfect. It's something, peace and respect, doubting Thomas, like he had said, which is like, I believe all the church fathers and everything they ever said, which was a really umbrella thing to say. And I thought, there's no way that's possible. So I said, well, select a church father. So he found a site and selected a church father. I said, well, select a assertion. He selected an assertion and he read it. And he got to the end of an idea and he did what he always does. And he just like gish galloped the hell out of it. He would not stop reading. And I'm like, wait, that's the end of an idea. That's the end of stop. So finally got him to stop. And I said, look, this is what's wrong with this at first blush, like right away. And I'm not saying I'm brilliant. I'm just saying there's an obvious logical problem here. Let's talk about it. He said, let's do a show. I said, fine. We'll I agreed. It was reasonable and rational of him. Let's read this on our own time, read it thoroughly, and come back with argumentation or agreements. Right. So that's what I'm doing here. Is I'm hoping you guys will help me. If I say something stupid, you'll point it out. That's why I do stuff like this.
Are you talking about the stream that Daniel had yesterday and Todd was reviewing?
Yes, same stream that Tog reviewed this morning. Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Now I missed most of Tog's review. I'll admit that I don't know what Tog really had to say, and of course he let Jill in, and the whole thing was a dumpster fire from there, and you couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's what
Just
Jill
Jill
likes.
is annoying.
Yeah.
Like,
I,
forgive me for not being able to speak well, you fucking black man.
yeah,
Whatever.
it's a great idea to point out someone's stutter in order to make it worse. Brilliant, frigging
Yep.
brilliant. How about you cause more social anxiety? Anyway,
Right.
gosh, just terrible, terrible. Okay, so that's where I'm at right now. Um, what are the premises again? Demolish. The premise is that my overall premise is that people who don't accept reality have a poor mapping of reality and thereby make poor judgment calls and are less happy than they could be if they accepted the reality at hand. So I want to improve people's logic circuits. Or actually, I want them to improve their own logic circuits. I can't do it. Peace and respect, Christian Carpenter. Okay, so on to the video. You ready, Midnight?
Shoot.
Oh, okay. Um,
Or
here we go.
whatever. Play the video. Roll the clip.
Roll the clip. All right, so I'm going to start back at the top. I'm going to read the title of this, which he selected. Okay.
I mean, you said video. I've been
It's
watching
not
a
a
video.
video. It's not.
Well,
It's just a website making. It's recalling claims of church fathers from within Eastern Orthodoxy. Okay. So it's an offshoot of Catholicism. They had disagreements with the Catholics. They separated, and this is very old Christianity, if you will.
I love SFB mods. Its comment. I reject the reality and replace it with my own. Yes. That was a total
Exactly.
douche move by Chill. Yep. Well, thank you, Downey Thomas.
What I mean by do not accept reality is not a claim of me having the objective reality, but only intellectual honesty to always gather more information to correct your mapping of reality. And it's obvious when people don't accept reality, things like they're unhappy. I mean, if someone's unhappy, there's something they're not accepting.
I mean, actually, actually, that might be not always be the case. Like they accept reality, and that's why they're unhappy. They're the full weight of the reality finally set in. That's why they're unhappy.
Well, that's going to be a whole nother talk. I completely disagree with you. I'd love to talk about it sometime. That's going to be a long one, though. Peace and respect, Kevin Lentini Music. Also, Big Zebra. Welcome, Steve. All right. That's going to be a whole nother talk. Love to have it. Maybe after this review, I'd have that talk with you about accepting realities causing or allowing for happiness and that it doesn't result in depression ever. Love to have that talk. From the book Concerning Matter, meaning physical matter, or in defense of the proposition that matter is created. So it's a theistic creation, ultimate creation of God proposition or belief, and is not the cause of evil. So this is something to say it's not the cause of evil is obviously speaking about the early Christian Gnostic ideas and Essene ideas that it is flesh which is our downfall, and that that matter is inherently evil, and he's speaking against that. Questions, comments?
I mean, I guess the first thing I would say is that matter. Hold on. Matter is just energy in a different form, right? It's the energy that can neither be created nor destroyed.
Right.
So I don't get what matter is created. I mean, I suppose you could say that matter is created in the sense of when energy changes form. I guess
that's good. That's good. Right. Because we know that matter is neither created nor destroyed.
Energy.
But I'm sorry, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It only changes forms. We can say there's always been the same amount of matter. I'm sorry, energy. We can say that. And
I was about to correct you, but good job, you did it yourself.
Sorry, I'm trying. I'm old. We used to say matter instead of the word energy, and I'm in that habit. So thank you for helping me. Okay, so we know that that's true. So the entirety, and what I think you're pointing out, the entirety of the religious position of God creating all energy and thereby through which matter is in defeat of physics. It's like in argumentation with physics. Basically, that we know is true. So it's in the first place, it's not even a solid idea.
I mean, I guess you can make. Actually, no, it wouldn't really work as an argument because it would still be self-defeating. Because if God created the energy, then it would go against physics, which shows us that matter can't be created nor destroyed, just change form. I don't know. Go you can go crazy with this.
You could. Peace and respect, Cryptomeria. Okay, so here's the first statement: that there cannot exist two uncreated substances at one and at the same time, and I would add also to that, in the same way. Okay. Now, what is that? Do you recognize that, Midnight?
Would you mind repeating that?
There cannot exist two uncreated substances at one time and in the same way, in the same space.
I mean, if they're uncreated, they don't really exist unless unless the. I'll be honest. I don't get that. Like, if it's uncreated, then it's not in space unless. I don't know. I plead the fifth.
Well, you make me think I should read it again and think more deeply about it. That there cannot exist two uncreated substances at one and the same time, which in our modern language, in one and at the same time.
Yeah, it honestly just sounds like word salad to me.
Okay, that which is uncreated in substance, two things cannot be one at the same time. And I would add to that, in the same space, in the same way. It's the first law of identity. A equals A. Yeah? And
Yes.
A does not equal B. Or maybe it's the third law. But it's saying that two things don't exist in the same time, in the same place, in the same way, simultaneously. That's how I'm reading that. You think it might mean something different than that?
Hmm. I mean, possibly. I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll glean it through context over time here. I presume that you hold equally with myself, he wrote. In other words, we just grant this. Like, this is so simple, everyone knows it. Something like that. You, whoever he's replying to, appear, however, very decidedly to have assumed and to have introduced into the argument this principle, that we must, of unavoidable necessity, maintain one of two things: either that God is separate from matter, or else, on the contrary, that he is indissolubly connected with it. So he's saying the person he's having intercourse with is making a dichotomy. That makes sense so far?
I mean, yeah, but okay. Okay, God is separate from matter or connected to it. Like, okay, I guess you could make the analogy of whether an artist is connected to their art or separate from them. Like, there is some connection to the artist, but the artist is also separate from the art.
I think that's a
So
good
the
analogy.
fucking
That's a good
so
way
it's
to
all,
think about it.
so honestly, it's a false dichotomy. What do you think about it?
Well, I want to read all that Daniel read, so I'm sure I'm understanding this. So far, I would agree with you that he's arguing that his interlocutor has made a false dichotomy, and he's going to obviously suggest something else.
Wait a minute,
And
is this a conversation? Is
yes,
this a document that Daniel made?
no, this is from, what's that guy's name? Maximus of Jerusalem. It's old.
Oh, well, you said you said the conversation Daniel had. I was like, oh wait, did he
Well, this
write
is
that?
what Daniel read
Oh,
that
read.
he
My
said he
bad.
would agree with, right? Carte Blanc, having not read it, he said he was going to agree with it, right? And now I'm looking at it and saying, I see things wrong with this.
Well, yeah.
Okay. And I think to say something like there's no logical problems here, when these guys are obviously arguing over what's logical to believe, um, and unless I assume creator God, this is actually
Oh, wait, can I
incomprehensible.
address something really quick in the chat that I just noticed?
Go
Uh,
slowly. Yeah, go ahead.
Big Zebra, they would actually be considered. They would actually be called. They're actually called virtual particles rather than virtual photons. Although virtual photons may exist, I'm not sure. I may need to look that up. But I guess virtual photons would be uncreated because they do pop. So virtual particles. My bad. Virtual particles would be considered uncreated. I mean, technically, guess. I guess by stretch of the imagination or whatever, virtual particles do pop in and out of existence, and and basically split, exist for a little bit of time, then cancel each other out, which is actually interesting when you consider that that everything in the universe is made out of matter. Although humans and everything else, like the stars and the planets and everything else, is only 4% of the matter that exists in the universe. That's a mind fuck. You know what? It's actually it's actually interesting. Like if there if there was more antimatter in the universe than matter, or just an equal amount, the universe never would have existed in the first place. Because as I said, virtual particles come in pairs, then cancel each other out. So the more positive virtual particles you have, the more likely you're gonna have you're gonna be able to have a universe. Like obviously negative virtual particles exist. They just cancel each other out. This is why antimatter is so fucking dangerous for us. It's like you do not want to fuck with antimatter. Like holy shit. And I'm stealing your stream. Sorry.
Well, not just you. I expect there's a Zebra and an SFB mod involved in that conversation in the side chat.
Well,
And
I
what
mean,
that tells me is I'm not making a very interesting stream.
that's not really true. People are just
Well, if
having
they're talking about physics instead of logic, and I'm trying to talk about logic, and particularly this set of claims by some church father, then and they're not involved in it, then I'm not doing a very good job.
I mean, Klein Klein bottle. That is interesting. I've actually seen a picture of the Klein bottle, and yeah, it can exist in real life. That's fucking amazing. But sorry, I mean, technically, you are talking about physics here. Like you're talking about matter, which is physics.
I can see the relatedness of it, the relevance. Yeah. Um,
Another way
Actually,
to look
I'm
at the
not
simple math
talking about
equations,
matter at
one plus
all.
one.
I'm
Well,
not talking about matter at all.
okay.
But this church
The
father
article,
was.
yeah, the father, whatever the fuck, is talking about matter. So it is pertinent to the conversation. Or I could just leave it. You can go back to what you were doing.
I don't need you to leave. I wasn't even suggesting that.
No, but I did.
Um, Well, I mean, if that's what you desire, that's okay. It's not what I desired. Um, but I do want to get back to the article, and I'm
Yeah.
talking about the logic of his claims, and not all the repercussions of the evidence and physics that he's referring to.
The logic
Which
of
is,
his claims seems to be faulty from what I've seen so far, but I could be wrong.
I mean, it just assumes God is creator. That's the problem here. And when we look at the text itself, um, it's this is also assuming ex nihilo, which in the Hebrew, in the Old Testament, where like claims are made, it does not read kara bara, that I create by speaking, or I create by nothing, which is ex nihilo creation. But what the text actually says is I reform things. And then after that, it describes the Reformation process.
By the way, someone came in.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you so much. Peace and respect to Joel, and welcome.
Greetings. You guys were struggling with the concepts of matter so much, I figured I'd try to see if I could help a little bit.
Right on. Say the thing you wanted.
What is up? What is up with the room you're in? It's so eye-hurty.
I like it.
Like it's just, I mean, it's just a repeat of the checkered pattern. It kind of blends in.
I don't know. It's very popular here in Asia. I don't know. It was here when I got. It was like that when I got here.
Well, I mixed my
Now,
eyes.
is that a paper? Is that a print or a tile?
I think it's some sort of print. I'm not sure. The walls are solid. They're like a concrete wall, and it's not exactly wallpaper, but it is interesting, I think. But let me know if my mic and everything are coming out. My stuff from the United States is still on its way here, probably another week or two. So my old Snow Globe mic is in there, and then my dear lovely new wife is quietly snoring behind me. So if you guys hear that,
new wife, congratulations! When were you married? Like 5 days ago?
Oh, no more than that.
I mean, 5 days ago would be considered a new wife, but then again, so would 5 months ago, or I guess 5 years ago would still be considered new.
Depends on how old you are and how many times you've been married and for how long.
Well,
yes, very subjective. Yes, I agree. But yeah, no, I mean the point of the argument here is to, I guess, help define matter and stuff. I'd love to chime in. Otherwise, if it's, my bigger question, Richard, is it just sophistry?
See, I'm not the only one.
He's not the only one. What? And give Joel a chance to respond after that, and then I'll hear your question, Joel. I don't know what's going on right now.
Big Zebra is also hurt by Jules' wallpaper. So,
but he's got a rationale. He's a zebra.
Yeah.
So what? So am I. I have stripes.
Okay.
And that's why does Midnight Sparkle look sound like Math Pig? Wow, I sound like Math Pig. You know. Actually, I'm just gonna shut up now. Go ahead, Joel.
I miss that guy. Wasn't he Matt?
Math Pig.
Yeah, his real name is Matt, I think. He's a Navy submariner.
No, that's a different person. Math Pig is a friend of ours in this little tiny circle. He is in which half of Ireland?
Scotland, I think.
No, it's definitely not Scotland. But I think Northern Ireland, where the infighting between Protestant and Catholic is actually quite heavy.
Who am I thinking of then? Some other user who goes by Pig something.
Don't know.
What was Midnight trying to say?
Midnight?
I mean, I wasn't really trying to say anything. Although I will say now that I've been put in the spotlight that I haven't talked to Math Pig since the incident, and Richard knows the incident.
Nope, can't recall it. I just let things go.
Well, the incident was that you, me, and him were backstage, and I said something that really pissed him off, and he left.
Oh, yes. I remember that now. Yeah.
I swear to God, I have a really fucking weird memory.
Okay. That's all right. I think most people do. I think we remember the things that we find important.
Well, Dean, my beard used to be almost down to my waist. So offense unto my eyes. The zebra does not like the checkered. I tried putting a background on the camera, but it looked more. I don't know. If it really bothers you guys, I can change it.
I think they're just kidding with you.
Okay.
No, we're not actually. No, we're
Well,
not.
then look at the text I'm displaying instead. Or let's get back on topic.
Yeah. So my question was, is it really a question about physics and the concepts of matter and the immaterial versus material, or is it just sophistry? Is it just people making crap up?
Well, it is sophistry, but not exactly, because it's based on a creator God belief. So it's not that it's completely unfounded or that they're not serious. So if someone, and I don't think you did, meant by sophistry that it was just playing around with words, I don't think it is.
Well, what I mean by it is just people, you kind of hinted on it yourself, will invent anything to support,
sure,
not just religion, but any kind of crazy idea. There's no basis, no logic or scientific basis in whatever you're talking about.
And I would have a question for you, Joel. What is your position on the God beliefs, and within that, the creation beliefs?
That's a very open-ended question. Is there a specificity or just in general?
In concern to our observations about energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed.
Okay.
Entropy, etc.
Yeah, so I hinted on Max Planck, considered the founder of quantum physics, how he talked about how there is no matter. Matter does not exist technically in the quantum physics realm, I guess. And so the way he described it, his summary statements were that God's mind is the matrix of all matter, basically. And there's a lot of really good scientific observations that talk about what they describe as information transfer between the eternal and the material. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense. That's certainly used for a lot of modern scientific development today. And as a Christian, obviously that mind is Jesus.
If we're all part of God's mind, God has DID. Then
God has what?
Dissociative identity disorder, basically multiple personalities. If we're inside God's mind, if we're just a creation of God's mind, then He's got. I
like to describe it. We're literally a figment of God's imagination, according to quantum physicists.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like He's got multiple personalities.
and a figment to God's mind, according to John chapter 1.
Like 8 billion personalities. Holy shit! Imagine having that many personalities.
Oh yeah, I don't know. That would be assuming that God projects his personalities onto our own, versus if we're just created with.
I mean, we're supposedly made in the image of God, aren't we? That means we have certain qualities, or all qualities that God has. So
no, I don't think so. I think it's why the Bible uses the word image. It's an imagery. It's an allegory. I don't think any of us have God's personality. I think some of us wish we did, or yeah, but no.
I mean, okay, well, that raises the question what God's personality even is, doesn't it?
Go talk to him. Yes, that's something that each of us have to use our own science.
I mean, I would love talking to him if he actually responded.
Yeah, that's between you and him. I tell people.
I could genuinely get off now and just have a conversation, then have a voice say he is God, but then I find myself asking, okay, is it actually God or is it just my own mind?
Well, Richard, I remember you mentioning,
I've gone over that several times, how you would know the difference.
Yeah, Richard, don't you give some sort of like a class or some sort of advice on how to pray?
Well, look, I know what you say. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know what you said, that the one way to tell the difference is if the voice gives you knowledge you couldn't possibly have known otherwise. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, then again, I find myself asking, okay, what you know what? Never mind.
In other words, the question should be falsifiable, and this on some topic you don't have the answer to, can't find the answer to.
It reminds me of one of my most recent favorite memes that I share in some of my debates about how a faith that can't be tested can't be trusted. And it
True.
references the Bible verse of where Jesus challenges Peter to step out in faith and walk on the water with him.
I hold a
But
very
then,
completely different view on that text. But anyway, go ahead.
but then, doesn't it also say that you shouldn't test faith?
No, it doesn't say that. It says you should test faith. It says you shouldn't try to. It uses the word tempt God. But in fact, it says you should test everything received in the Spirit.
Right. Test a tree by its fruits, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah. We
That
should judge. We should test.
I guess we get to, like, what do you mean by don't tempt God? Like, if you're telling God, the only way I believe you is if you show up in my apartment right now. Is that tempting God?
I don't think so. That's how I met God. I dared God to prove to me that he was real when I was an atheist in high school. And he did. So I think, for me at least, and probably others.
Okay. Which form did he take when he showed up?
It was more of I like to describe it. God literally cracked my closed-minded atheist head open like an egg. It's not something that's easily describable.
I mean, that kind of didn't answer the question, but that's fine.
Well, I mean, again, that's why I'm saying that's the best answer I've come up with over the decades. My experience is that God reveals himself to everybody absolutely uniquely. And I can go into all kinds of details of that. And I think everybody that's met God can share testimony to that. So it's not really a good or easy question to answer. It's going to have to be something that, again, between you and the Lord yourselves, really. And I think if anybody told you a certain method or a certain way that you talk to God, that's never as authentic as if you genuinely do it. God will convince you. I'm very confident. He convinces everybody.
Okay, you asked a question, midnight, and I want to give you the best possible answer. So what do I always do? I go back beyond the translations, before the translations, and try to get to the root ideas. Okay, so we're in Deuteronomy. That's Old Testament. That's going to be Hebrew. The word tempt, it does not read, ye shall not tempt the Lord your God. It does not read that. Let's see what it never reads what they translated. What it does say is Nasa, Io, Nasa Yahoveh. That's what it reads, Elohim. So this is the powerful beings, right, who assign or value to or follow the Jehovah. So this powerful beings of God. It is not the Lord your God. Okay, that's a horrible translation. And EO is going to be not. It's going to be the definite article of total denial. And the idea of absolute not. I already know that word. And Nasa. Oh, yay, I pronounced it correctly. A primitive root. In other words, there's no etymology to look for. That's it. It is a primitive root word.
So what's the actual translation? The actual...
And I would have been done telling that if you hadn't asked. By implication, to attempt, to adventure, to assay, to prove, to tempt, to try. Okay? Let's see.
I see that in the Greek as well, Richard.
Yeah.
Matthew 4:7 is for Jesus. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just confirming where Jesus quotes the scripture in Matthew 4:7, uses the Greek word ekperisasis, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Same thing, to put to the test, make trial of, tempt, try, to test thoroughly.
Mm-hmm. And I like to also look into the Gesenius and the surrounding languages of the time for better depth of understanding. I like to be thorough about these things on something if it's kind of fuzzy like this is. because it seems like this word test would argue with other parts of the Bible. So we need more clarity here. And since it's a root word, there's no further we can go than to say, not used in the Cal form. I don't know what PRIQ stands for in the Arabic, the Arabia, to smell, to try by the smell, to try something. Primary idea differs from that of, I can't pronounce that, which is to try by touch. Okay. So this is something like, don't give God the smell test. How's that?
Wouldn't it be better to say, don't give God the shit test?
I don't know what the shit test means.
You know what? Never mind.
If you like, Richard, I can offer to share, I guess, personal experience or personal interpretation examples.
Sure.
Yeah, to me, so everything about this, our relationship with God, the whole reason why we even exist is to have a loving relationship with the Lord. You know, he has animals, he has the angels, but he has us. We're his literal children. And so he wants us to love him. And so when in a loving relationship, like with our spouses, for example, or whatever, if you try to say to somebody that you don't love me unless you do this, that's not love. That's testing. It's a conditional love. And so that's what it means. Don't tell God you don't love me unless you do this. It's manipulation. It's not love. So that's what these verses mean. Don't manipulate God. God's not our sugar daddy, I like to say.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that you said it better than I could have, maybe. Peace and respect. Remember Sammy Jenkins. Also, James Apperson. Welcome, guys. Thanks for dropping by. Hey, since we got so many people watching this, how about I make the typical request that you pet the algorithm? You know, whether you think I'm right or whether you think I'm wrong, if you think anything I'm saying could be valuable to someone at some time, even if it's not you, I appreciate the promotion of it, because I'm trying to talk about what is rational to believe. After all, the Christ is quoted as having said, "Let us reason together," not let us assume together, not let us accept church fathers together, let us accept tradition together. In fact, the entirety of his message is, "You have heard, but I say," correcting old ideas. That's his entire message. And
Let's
I
not
want
fight together.
to follow along that same path. Peace and respect, Guitar Dog. Go ahead, Joel.
Oh, I just wanted to add more. Most importantly, let's not fight together. I think was
Right. Let's fight against ideas, not persons.
The Quran mentions that as well, about how Allah says to not fight about religion, but to challenge each other, so that you can test each other's religion. I think is how their scripture goes. See which one's right. Love that.
Absolutely, we should. After all, there are multiple denominations of theistic belief, and we need to at least try to, in all honesty, get settled in this. We need to figure out what is most reasonable to believe.
Come to the truth. So, are we trying to parse this document? And is there a link that we can read it independently, or what did you want your show to be about tonight or today?
Oh, I'd be happy to give you a link to it, so you can look at it at your own screen, at your own leisure and size. I'm going to put that in both the comments, and also so you can reference it from within the panel in the private chat. So there you go. It's in both places.
So again, what's the premise? What's the discussion supposed to be about?
The discussion for me here, what I'm attempting to do is say, does this church father make sense in reality?
Do you have a good summary of what he's saying first?
Well, I've read about half of it, but I would start over and read the section that myself and Daniel read together. Actually, Daniel read and I listened.
Okay. I remember now, earlier tonight, you were quoting the part where it says there cannot exist two uncreated substances at one at the same time. I typed in the text earlier that what's the foundation of that? Who are we to say what uncreated substances even are, much less what they can or can't do. That was my first thought.
Right. And with modern science and virtual particles, is this even true?
You want to open that box of virtual particles?
Yes. I mean, is
You want to
this
share
the
your
statement right
understanding?
here? Is this true?
Well, does it mention vertical particle? I'm curious. What's your knowledge of that? First of all,
What's my knowledge of what?
virtual particles.
Almost nothing.
The Boulder Casimir effect, it's called. So it's a bit of a misnomer. It's not well understood. The best summary that I've come over the years trying to explain it is that it is a math error. They are hypothetical, non-true existent probability curve data points at both ends of a bell curve that
Okay.
were derived when not Casimir as is often misattributed to, but this guy named Polder, Polder, I think, basically was trying to experiment with the whole duality of electromagnetism and other things. They're answering the question I think this guy tries to presume is if energy is created or destroyed, thermodynamic laws. And so what they did is they just put a bell in a vacuum chamber, vacuumed out real well, and
Okay.
and they put two electrodes basically real close to each other, and they detected pressure gaining between the electrodes.
Okay.
So they said, okay, well, there's something forming, there's something causing that pressure, but the concern was physicists when they criticize or look at it, try to falsify it, as you accurately put it earlier, is that when you electrify anything, especially metal plates, that tends to cause not only electromagnetic interactions, but it's probably some sort of minute outgassing. Something is causing a physical pressure based on physical things. It's not virtual. It's not something coming from nothing, as Lawrence Krauss and others tried to preach. So virtual particles are a math error. They're not necessarily. The reason why they're called virtual is because they're theoretically not real particles.
Right. Well, I would make the observation, but this would be on a much lesser scale, that arc welding is precisely the pressure they would be talking about there.
Yep, I agree.
Of course, I'm sure the cathode and anode that they used transferred much, much less material, but that material would be moving and cause pressure.
Mm-hmm. Especially on a
So
high
that was
sensitivity.
kind of goofy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's not well known. It's not really taught.
Great.
Yeah. It's more of a debate tactic than anything, I think, these days.
Fair enough.
So yeah, what is an uncreated substance? I guess, theologically, that's what God would create. It's not something that's uncreated. It kind of sounds oxymoronic when I put it that way, right?
Right.
The stone that was not hewn from the mountain. What is this? What is that reference?
I think it's a meteor.
Well, I agree, but I'm trying to get to the root of what uncreated substances are first, if we're going to analyze this.
Well, I see no such claim within the text itself anywhere.
That there cannot exist two uncreated substances at one and the same time. Assumes that they exist, I guess. I don't know. It's my first question mark.
Yeah, it's assuming that they were created, which is a problem for me, since that claim doesn't exist in the Bible that they're referring to, that they say is their foundation for belief.
No, I agree. Even logically, that's incoherent. That's why I asked, is it just sophistry?
Well, they don't think so.
Well, why?
The people who are writing these didn't think so, but I think so.
Well, then, okay, if we're going to take this seriously, as you want to be, as you want to, as it seems that while you're streaming tonight, we need to come to the bottom of that. What are two uncreated substances, or what's an uncreated substance? I can guess. I can theorize.
What do you think he's trying to say? That would be interesting.
Again, I don't know what he's trying to say specifically. It's because it's not logically coherent. But there's a theory in quantum physics again, what's called the decoherency properties of creation, where the what's called the temporary matter, or the coherent side of reality, the natural, whatever you want to call it, the biblical science calls it the temporary fleeting side of reality. That is an information transfer from the decoherent side, as you've heard me talk about before, and
Right.
which is the eternal state, where everything truly exists, the permanent nature, should I say, of reality. And so that eternal state outside of space-time would theoretically be considered uncreated, because it's always the same. It's all one big giant, existence. And God just temporarily, through wave function collapse, intersection collisions, converts it into a temporary state that we call,
Matter.
this side of space-time. Yeah, exactly. Energy. Yeah.
Okay. Stuff we see.
Right. Things that we observe, exactly, including our ability to our consciousness, our ability to observe. So that's what an uncreated substance in my mind would be, is what is before space-time or outside of space-time. So that's basically everything. So when he says they cannot exist two uncreated substances, again, that's still self-contradictory, I guess.
And further, of course, he's quoting his interlocutor's theory and then trying to refute it. Okay, so here we have the interlocutor's theory. Yeah,
that's always fun. Well, I did a word search for uncreated. There's 14 references in this text for the term uncreated. So maybe there's some clues.
Yeah. Maximus writes further, "You appear, however, very decidedly to have assumed and to have introduced into the argument this principle, that we must of unavoidable necessity maintain one of two things: either that God is separate from matter, or else, on the contrary, that he is indissolubly connected with matter." Okay, so and that's apparently what he doesn't agree with.
The nature of God. So, all
right. If then, just outline a few of them. If then anyone should choose to assert that he, meaning God, exists in union with matter, that would be saying that there is only one uncreated substance, that would be the God, for either of the two must constitute a part of the other. And since they form parts of each other, they cannot be two uncreated substances. What do you think about that?
First thought is that touches on the first cause or unmoved mover concepts, which would again be self-invalidating, because since matter can't create itself, then if God is matter, if he is material, then what created God? So, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a problem. That would be at least begging the question.
Exactly. Agreed.
Maybe assuming the consequent. Just as in speaking of man, we do not describe him as subdivided into a number of distinct parts, each forming a separate created substance, but, as reason requires us to do, assert that he was made by God in a single created substance consisting of many parts. So, in like manner, if God is not separate from matter, we are driven to the conclusion that there is only one uncreated substance.
It doesn't quite compute. I'm trying to reread it. To me, that's conflating the creation of man with the creation of God.
Well, I think he's making an association between, say, a single body and all of the universe, and Adam to all that which is, where we say that Adam is a complete being, and though made of singular parts, is a singular substance, mankind. And in like manner, all of the universe, although made of several singular parts, down to whatever scale you like, it's all the same thing. What do you think?
So that sounds getting very close, if not exactly, pantheism.
It is. This is getting close to like panentheism or pantheism, or possibly what's that other term? Stuck on a word. Excuse me. Panpsychism. Perhaps
Okay.
panpsychism.
I'm not familiar with that one. But
all knowledge is contained within the universe, within the consciousnesses of the universe. Thereby, on the whole, the universe has consciousness. Panpsychism.
is that similar or identical to solipsism or solipsism?
Oh, similar to. If the universe is the mind, then yes. If the universe is the mind in solipsism, this is like a material solipsist.
Well, my understanding specifically of solipsism is that it's one's belief that nothing is true or nothing exists except what their mind creates, that they are essentially God.
Yes, no.
Oh,
From what I
okay.
understand, that their experience is a true experience and must be, and that experience requires mind, but it's kind of like a false humility in that it can be interpreted as I am the important thing, I am that mind, and all of it based on the unlikelihood of a brain ever being in like a Boltzmann brain kind of an idea is what these ideas are extrapolated out from. That the person who is experiencing it and is the only solipsist, no one else actually exists, is only an expression of that mind and is not necessarily the entirety of the mind. So they don't necessarily think of themselves as God because they don't necessarily think that they are all of that mind. Does that make sense?
Almost. The first part of that description you described to me sounded more like just the regular observer effect. Things that I observe, are true
Yeah.
to me.
Sure.
But the solipsism comes when, again, my potentially wrong understanding of the definition is they think that nothing exists except what they believe, what's in their mind. If they don't believe something, it's outside of their mind, then it doesn't exist, basically.
Well, you of course realize that in order to settle some particular belief, we'd have to mention some certain person and then not accidentally strawman their position. So I'd have to do something like Matt Dillahunty believes the following on solipsism.
Well, I am going to look up the formal definition, which I don't have a lot of
or
faith
like
in.
we'd have to get down to a singular person to decide something like what we're talking about now.
Well, the class with that wonderful idea is that most people are wrong,
including me.
Here's Webster. Yeah. Webster says a theory holding that the self can know nothing but its own modifications and that the self is the only existent thing. So that's what I was understanding. Also,
right, that's general solipsism.
I love this little side. Oh, we lost midnight.
Well, no, we didn't lose midnight. Midnight just cuts out when midnight gets bored or distracted or whatever. It's fine. We just kind of accept that about midnight.
Egocentrism, I love that. All right. So, okay.
I don't know. I can't accuse midnight of anything when if I'm having intercourse with Jill and Jill repeats himself, my brain shuts down and I can't hear him anymore.
Intercourse may not have been the best word, but I understand. Others may, have fun with that word.
No, I do it on purpose so they can have fun.
Okay. You're very kind. You're very generous. Love it.
I'm trying to be.
It cannot be too uncreated substance. Just as in speaking of man, we do not describe him as subdivided into a number of distinct parts. Why does that remind me of organs, each forming a separate created substance? But as reasons require require us to do? Assert that he was made by God, single created substance. See, I don't know if I understand that. He's trying to say that man is separate substances, but is also a single created substance. That does not make sense. It's contradictory.
I think it's the difference between saying person and collection of organs.
Or is it just being kind of pedantic? He's referring to man as the term mankind, all mankind,
Sure.
as one substance, and then individual people, I guess, is multiply. It's just it's hard to follow. Do you want to try to re-explain the other gentleman's position that brought this up?
I don't know enough to say something like that.
Okay.
Truly. I mean, in all fairness, I wouldn't want to.
Because
we had 13 minutes left, if memory serves. According to his schedule, mine was open. That's how I'm able to be doing this right now.
Yeah.
And he said he only had 13 minutes left. And then he read just these 2 paragraphs. And I said, well, let's talk about it. I see some problems here. And then for the next 8 minutes, by the time that was done, was what was left. He said he didn't have time to talk about it. We could have been done with this in 8 minutes.
I was going to say, yeah, I don't want to read the whole thing. I was hoping to hear the counter argument, get through it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And
okay, so it seems to me that in fundamental logic, that what's going on here is he's assuming his religious position, and the other person had too. And neither one of them are talking out of what could be called fan fiction. They're just within the fan fiction. And I'm a correspondence theorist. So this doesn't agree with the actuality that I see, and because of that, I can't agree with it. For everything that we've been talking about on the show so far, for all those reasons.
I'm reading this final paragraph. Usually that comes with the summary, but it's stating things that are unrelated, like things that are opposite of each other. White and black, light and darkness. It's a matter where some one thing, it could not be opposed to itself. Thus, then, this being the nature of opposites, is proof that matter has no existence. Okay, so that's the summary. Matter does not exist. Okay, I can agree with that from a quantum physicist perspective. Is that good enough? He agrees with the predominant theories of quantum physics today. Matter does not exist. Naturalism was falsified about 100 years ago.
I'm going to read this to all of the audience a little bit more slowly. Well, then, if the parts of a whole are not mutually destructive, and yet the parts of matter are mutually destructive, they cannot be parts of one matter. And if they are not parts of one another, they cannot be composed of one and the same matter. Nay, they cannot be matter at all, since nothing in existence is destructive of itself, or it wouldn't exist, as we learned from the doctrine of opposites. For nothing is opposed to itself and opposite, being by nature opposed to something else. White, for example, is not opposed to itself, but it's said to be the opposite of black. And similarly, light is shown not to be opposed to itself, but is considered an opposite in relation to darkness. And so, of a very great number of things besides. If then matter were some one thing, it could not be opposed to itself. This, then, being the nature of opposites, it is proved that matter has no existence. Okay, on a grand scale, I'll agree with that if that's what he meant.
Same. I was gonna say I think I might agree with you so far. It sounds like that he's again agreeing with common quantum physicist theory, but just got it in a really weird, almost self-contradictory roundabout way.
So this is like saying, and tell me where I'm thinking poorly, please. This is an ancient expression of zero energy theory, that the total sum of energy in the universe, with all negative energy and positive energy, the total sum is zero. No? Yes? Maybe? Not
necessarily. No, sir. Because the first interesting observation is that there is no total sum of energy. I mean, there is an imbalance. Something CERN was exploring, the imbalance of matter versus antimatter, for example. It's raised all kinds of questions: how the heck does this universe exist in the first place? Leading towards the miracle of creation. But typically, at least in physics circles, the zero energy point, data point, refers to quantum spins. If you're familiar with anything about quark and subquark level spin discussions,
no, I would probably need a 4-hour explanation of that.
Well, I'll try to give you a 4-minute one. People tell me I'm good at explaining things, but maybe I can put myself to the test. But so part of the way that you express the math, or the probability curves for quantum particles, for quanta, as it's called, is you try to either map on paper or visualize in your mind the spin of these particles, these bosons and fermions and things, and the angle at which the quantum particles spin around the subatomic particles. It's all below subatomic. The directions, the angular orbital momentum vectors, and all kinds of different parts of the math that try to judge or try to understand what these spins are doing, that cause the electromagnetic effects, that cause everything to interact, that cause atoms to repel and push, and gravity to exist, all that stuff. It's all based on the spins, right? Okay. And so when a quantum particle is spinning around its core in a perfect way, where there is no angular momentum, which is like a bicycle wheel. If you spin a bicycle wheel, and if you're holding it perfectly steady, centered, you don't feel any vector changes. Or I used to explain this with fidget spinners. So you spin the fidget spinner, you keep it level.
You would only feel downward pressure. You wouldn't feel the spin of it.
You wouldn't feel the angular momentum until you twisted it.
Right.
So you moved it off its center. So that's what angular momentum is. Right. So zero point energy, that is when the spin is at its equilibrium, where there is no vectors. It's zero. The vector changes are zero. The particle is not moving, other than the spin itself. The spin is moving, but there's no interaction. And so I used to love that analogy. I use that as an analogy as the proof of God's existence. Because I used to teach it to kids like in church and stuff with the fidget spinner. I let them spin it while we're talking, and then have them twist it like that. And so if Newton's laws are true, that any particle in motion, any object in motion stays in motion, and there's no interaction unless there's interaction.
So tends to stay.
It takes a force to change a force, basically. And if that's true, then if all of the initial state zero energy particle spins are all zero, or all as they're first created, supposedly, then nothing's interacting. There's no way to start the first angular momentum spins. And so if all quanta are all at the zero energy point, what starts the imbalance? And so the kid, he's playing with it. The kid's doing it. He's moving his finger, and it's like, well, therefore God has to do something to cause that initial spin vector change, that angular momentum vector change.
You were right. You were able to do it pretty quickly. Peace and respect, and welcome, Simos Funk.
Greetings, sir.
Hello. Am I coming through okay? I've got a new mic set up, so I don't want to be. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I remember your name, sir, but I don't remember topics we may have shared.
No, I don't know whether we have spoken or not. I'm not
Mhm.
completely sure. I've been out of the loop for a little while.
Is it inappropriate to say I wish you well?
Oh no, that's fine. I'm okay. I've just been sitting back. I've been tired a lot recently, so
Okay.
rather than trying to get burnt out,
Sounds healthy.
I've just taken a back seat. But there you go. How are you going, Richard? Are you all right?
I'm better than I deserve. I've got a lot of time off right now and probably will for approximately another week because I fell off of a ladder and injured my left foot through bringing it beyond its limitations by tissues and tendons and such like that.
Hyper,
dear.
I remembered your story about you falling off the roof perfectly with your brother.
Yeah, that was so weird. It's true.
It
was like a ninja movie or something. It was crazy.
Instinct. Natural.
Did I tell you that story, Simus? I would catch you up to speed.
I haven't
just
heard
real
it.
quick.
No, I have not heard that.
Okay, so I'm on a single. Sorry, let me try English instead. I'm on a cedar shingle roof, and I'm finishing the very point of it.
Right.
It's essentially a pyramid shape. It begins to rain, and it's the first cedar shake roof I'd ever done. I did not know it was about to become snot. I didn't know that.
Right. I think I know what you mean. They're very slippery. I take it by snot. You mean?
Yeah. The microfibers in the cedar will collect water and become very slushy like. It feels like slush or snot. It's amazingly slick. So I come off the roof, and the first thing that comes off the roof is not me. It's a large reciprocating saw with a long blade on it that I was going to do my final cuts with. And my brother hears that coming down off the roof, and he steps back out from underneath of the awning and goes to catch me. And by the time I cleared the roof, I could see that he had swatted aside. Good for him. Did not try to catch the reciprocating saw, and had his arms in an extended cradle. Now, this man is not 3 times my size. He's actually a little bit smaller than me. So altogether, a bad idea.
Yeah.
To catch someone your own
kudos for trying.
weight.
All right. Kudos for trying.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely thought. But I was like 10 feet in the air, and there's a little bit of time for acceleration in that 6 feet to his arms. So I saw that as I cleared the roof, and I'm not really sure how this happened, how I did it. I would like to entertain the idea that something took over my brain. Of course, it's a very religious and biased perspective, but because my brain was just screaming and freaking out, because that's what you do when you fall, and you don't have time to think anyway. But what I did was I put my arms out to the side, and I was falling at feet first. And then I planted my left foot in the middle of his chest, and I didn't kick him. I shoved him. I shoved him by about his breastbone with my left foot, and then continued that motion to where my body, my left foot, and my arms and my spine was a T shape, with my right foot level with the ground, horizontal, with my right foot pointed toward the core of the planet. And I landed with my right leg locked straight out in front of me, with my body parallel to the earth, basically, and in semi-soft soil because it was going to be gardening. Stuck my foot down about 2 inches down into fairly fluffy soil, and came to a full stop in that position and just stood up without a sprained something or anything. It was super weird.
Yeah,
I swear, it was like a ninja move. It was amazing.
Good
Okay.
instincts.
Yeah, good instincts, definitely. That's quite amazing. And it weird how, like, the subconscious takes over in times of need.
That's a good explanation of the experience, I think.
I've been there myself. I had a very bad motorcycle accident, and as I'm flying through the air, I managed to, instead of just crashing into something, land on my feet, which gave me a hop, which got me out of the way of a truck. And I was like,
Nice.
how the hell did that happen? I have no idea, because that was very quick, But
Yeah, and I'm getting some background noise. It sounds like maybe a keyboard.
That's me. My laptop. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sure you also know how to fix that.
Yes. Experimenting.
Right on. And other such stories. Of course, you understand, Simos, although I would not attempt to, and I don't think I have that kind of relationship where I could gaslight you. To me, what you just said is you had an experience of a possession. That's
okay.
that's what I heard.
Okay. I wouldn't dream of trying to dissuade you from your experiences, because
Nor
I
I,
don't think you can.
nor I yours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had another weird one happened. I was in Iraq in a war zone, in a safe zone within a war zone. So a little green map surrounded by red, something like that. And I got my hands on one of the motorcycles we had given Saddam Hussein.
Okay.
So it was a Yammer. It was a 400 dirt bike. And so I learned to ride motorcycle when I was, let's say, in 2006 in a war zone on this 400. And I had just gotten where I'm up on the wheels, and I'm fairly comfortable with it, and I get out on the street, and of course I'm an idiot, and I'm having a lot of fun. So I'm winding this thing out. Now it'll only go to 81 miles an hour, but it get there real quick,
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with a dude as small as me on it, I'm not holding that thing back. So I'm just winding it out and having a big old time. And I was the only one on the compound with a motorcycle. So I was showing off, and I knew everyone was noticing me, and everyone was asking me about the motorcycle and where I got it. Is that a question, Joel, or comment?
No, I apologize for the distraction. I am experimenting with how to get the camera to not bleed the background, if you can see.
Oh, okay. Have fun. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm getting a little bit cocky about it, of course, because it's getting me so much attention. And I'm going on this road that I'd been on, 2 times, 3 times before. I'm going back across it the 4th time, I think. And there's these 2 Humvees, and of course, Saudi Arabia, they're kicking up dust, just huge billowing clouds of dust. They're only going about 30, maybe 40 miles an hour. They're not going real fast because it's on the outskirts of the compound. There's no persons around there, and it's just an access road. And I just decided to, drop down a gear and punch it and blow by them. And I'm about even with the front of those 2 Humvees, and the billowing cloud of dust parts from my blocking my vision, and I see across the road, which I knew was there if I hadn't been showing off.
Yeah.
They had cut the road, and they backfilled with dirt. They'd put some kind of communication cable through there or something, and they didn't compact the backfill, and continuing traffic on it was compacting it. Now they cut a ditch about 3 feet wide, and I remember seeing it open. It was about 6 feet deep, and it compacted down to where it was about 3 feet wide and about 1.5 feet deep. This trench across the road.
Wow.
So I'm doing
Okay.
I'm doing approximately 60. I know that because how fast I'm blowing by them. I'm doing approximately 60 miles an hour. When the dust comes away from blocking my view, there's a trench in front of me about 45 feet away. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
That sounds like death on a stick.
Well, you're on a dirt bike, so did you Evel Knievel it? Did you gun the throttle, bring the front wheel up, and try and jump the ditch?
Nope.
No, just straight into it. Yeah,
In fact, I had no thoughts.
head first.
I had no thoughts. I couldn't think. I had 2 weeks experience, my total lifetime experience, about 2 weeks of spare time, not 2 weeks constantly.
Yeah.
So I had almost no experience. My brain just went, "Bah!" And that's what my brain did. It just went,
If I may
"Bah,
share-
you're going to die," essentially.
Let me share, Richard. You're confirming a theory I have. Medical or a neuroscience perspective, that our brain, there's a neuroscientist I watched a TED talk on years ago, that when I hear stories like yours more and more often, I think is extremely confirmed that our brain is simply a meat computer. His dissertation is about how all the research that people like him are doing is showing that our brains are not used for thoughts, that our thinking is not detectable. It's not something that we can observe brain activity from. It's all, and he goes into great detail about it, it's all basically to predict movement. Calls himself a, quote, movement chauvinist for some reason, to be cute, I guess. But, and he gives examples. He says you watch the difference between a 5-year-old child versus a robot playing chess, for example. The idea to be able to teach a computer to play chess, that problem is solved. You pitch Deep Blue, IBM's Deep Blue, to some guy named Gary, I forget his name, some world famous chess master.
Kasparov, yeah.
Okay. They say Deep Blue sometimes wins. They figured that out. But if you have a 5-year-old reach across and try to pick up and move a chess piece across the table, he does it very adeptly. He doesn't. It's real quick. But if you try to get a robot to do it, not only is it real slow or whatever, but it can eventually do it. And he shows a picture of a robot pouring a cup of water. To get the robot arm to do anything else, it requires another 3-year PhD program. The audience laughs. So the basic point is that our synapses, our brain, it's wired to automate our biological systems and to predict movement. And he goes into also other examples with other life forms, not just humans. And so that's what you're, I think, confirming, that your mind, your meat computer is very calibrated. It's got a lot of good programming in it. And so when you were faced with those situations,
maybe so. Maybe so. So here's the result of the end of it. Although my conscious brain was totally flipped out and freaking out and froze. It froze. And it was just screaming at me. Here's what my body did. I applied enough front brake and turned the front tire that the rear end came around. Then I locked up both the front and back brakes, leaning away from the direction of travel, not putting down my left foot, because I turned to the left, not putting down my left foot, went into a full sideways, both locked up skid, parallel to the direction,
Wow.
parallel to the ditch line. Got down to something about, I don't know exactly, something around maybe 10 miles per hour. Let go of the front brake, steering toward the right, still maintaining the back brake, straightened it up and came up into a full a full straight up and down position. Let go of the back brake, dropped it into second gear, went through at an idle in second gear, and as soon as I cleared it, punched it again and was back up to 60 miles an hour. And all of that happened in, I don't know, 45 feet from 60 to 10 miles an hour, deceleration, and back to 60 miles an hour. All that happened in, I know, less than a minute.
You're a natural. You're a natural. If anybody,
that's
can
a
crash,
good excuse.
If anybody could crash and survive, it's you. You're a natural at crashing.
I guess. I swear it. I mean, I've seen that move done in movies since, and whatever stunt person did it. But when I consider the amount of training and exercise that they must have had to get to that point, and I'm very aware I did not have that. So yeah, a person could say something like, "Oh gosh, Rich, you're a natural." Well, that's a big compliment. I'm not sure I'm willing to accept it.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure it's a good thing to be a natural at crashing anyway.
No, that's not a good thing.
So, I know. Just saying.
Yeah, again, my conclusion is that your meat computer, the computer in your head is extremely well programmed and sophisticated. You have really good natural instincts, better than most.
Yeah, maybe. But several times since then, I've experienced possession. And I don't believe there is, I don't know which term is correct, subconscious or unconscious mind. I don't think there is such a thing. I think that there are familiars in heaven and that they are able to take over when it's needed. And they are that mind and that we don't have it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can agree with both. I don't know if you remember, I shared a similar story with like an angel or something changing my steering wheel that helped me avoid dying from a deer in the road.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I recall you telling that story.
Yeah, so I'm familiar. Yeah, that was not instinct. I would agree with you.
It's kind of assuming the consequence. I know it's logically fallacious. I can't show it. I know that. To say something like what we observe experientially and is verified through psychology and brain testing is this unconscious or subconscious mind experience. But then when we try to find it, we can't find it. Well, which is it? It's there or it ain't. Well, it's observably experientially there, but is it located in the meat? Doesn't seem to be.
Right.
Of course, on a materialistic response, it has to be in the meat. What's that?
Have I shared with you the global medical research going on right now about not near death, but post-death experiences of literal resurrection? We're calling it the Lazarus syndrome now in medical books. But
I've heard of this. Peace and respect, Yeti life. Go ahead. Share it with others.
There's an excellent.
Oh, wait a minute. To be fair to Simus, did you have anything on those last assertions or anything?
Not really. I mean, I don't think it's worth expressing my opinion on what is actually happening because it's probably not it's not convincing. Of course, my presuppositions are completely different.
But I haven't heard you say it.
Yeah, and I would beg to differ, Simus, that the whole purpose of science, the observer effect that I think Richard was talking about, is for us to hear ideas that might be better than our own. We have to share to learn.
Well, like I said, like I was just saying, my presuppositions don't align with allowing me to consider that as a first and foremost explanation. So I don't think there's any point in me just expressing something which you're going to disagree with based on presupposition.
I would say it's very honest and unbiased of you to say that, but again,
I respect Richard hugely, and we know that we are diametrically opposed in our attitudes, really. So,
well, I know you know Richard fairly well about this, and that's why
I'm pretty much
we like to challenge your ideas.
I'm a naturalist and a physicalist or materialist, whichever you prefer to call it.
Right. So you're confirming what Richard was suggesting, that everything is in the mind.
Everything's in the brain, yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of consciousness, yeah.
Did you want? I've got a YouTube video interview of one of the leading researchers at NYU. That I can give you the link, Richard, if you want to share. I think it's a little more than 5 minutes, maybe, but he goes into some of the details. Yeah,
sure.
I'd love your thoughts on it too, Samus.
Right. I mean, I have to be agnostic in terms of knowing the answer, because I don't know the answer either. That's why
none
I'm
of us
saying
do.
it's based on presupposition.
Well, I should.
Right.
I appreciate that.
But it's still
I was wanting to
interesting
just
to
make
think
sure.
about.
Yeah,
And you can
I like
see,
the question. Yeah.
Joel, I'm sure you can see why I have respect for this man. That he is very rational, in that he's aware of my position and his own and the differences, between them, but still, he's not emotionally attached to his belief system. It's not who he is, and I can respect that.
Right.
Yeah.
Unbiased, which I was trying to encourage that you and I are also that way.
I like to. I'm biased, like all humans, but I'm reminded in that just because somebody expresses something different to myself doesn't mean that it's wrong. I I've got no hubris in thinking that I'm right.
Well, again, to me, that is the definition of unbiased. Biased is when you don't change your mind.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think of it slightly different, but yes, no, I wouldn't disagree with that as being certainly one of the consequences of being unbiased.
It's about 8 minutes long. I posted it under SFB mod because I don't have a wrench on this Joel account.
You're Joel.
StreamYard.
Yeah, he's Joel, SFB mod 1 and the same.
Wow. Okay, now I know who you are. Yeah, we spoke ages and ages and ages ago.
Yeah. Over a year or two ago.
Long time ago. Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
So, Joel, either you can share that, or you can put it in a private chat, and I'll be able to share it. Either one.
Yeah,
I've got it here. I've got it here. Well, yeah, if you want to share it and watch it now, that'd be cool.
I'll post
It'd be best if you put it in private chat, and we eliminated one connection.
There you go. It's about 8 minutes long. And I thought it's an excellent interview. There's several out there. There was upwards of 15 different medical groups that I've tried to follow the research on. There's probably more now. But the basic conclusion is there is a need for a scientific explanation how people are able to be resurrected after several hours, sometimes days after both heart and brain death. I mean, complete post-mortem, as he describes, and still retain their mind, still retain their personality, still retain their memories. It's happening more and more often. So much so that the ICU profession, like this one doctor that I'm sharing from, they're doing pharmaceutical research to try to develop better ICU type drugs, because a lot of them actually erase memory when they administer to it. So they're trying to come up with life-saving medications that don't erase memory to get a better, basis to study what people witness, what people experience, in his words, after they die and come back.
Ready?
It's your show, sir. Please.
Millions and millions of people who've gone to the point of death and beyond. We actually don't call these near-death experiences. That is a very ambiguous term, and it's a term that's been grossly misused. But the reality is that people who go through death and come back to life have recalled universal and consistent features, even though they don't know each other at all. And this is cross cultures, cross so-called religious beliefs and non-religious beliefs, and so on and so forth. It seems to be a universal human experience. And you have to realize, we were never meant to go into death. We were never meant to scientifically start to parse through and beyond death. But that's exactly what science is doing now. And remarkably, we find that when people go through there, they have these lucid experiences of death that are not consistent with hallucinations. They are not consistent with illusions. They are not delusional. These are real experiences that are occurring.
So what do you conclude from this? I mean, these are deep questions, and you're an intensive care doctor. You're talking to us from the intensive care now. So I would forgive you that you might say, I can't be interested in metaphysical questions that you're hurling at me. But there's two obvious areas that you're getting into. One is the mind-body problem. Is there a kind of something other than just the flesh operating here? Is there something more significant? And I suppose other people will be thinking, well, does this make you think about afterlives? Does it make you think about there's something more to us and for us when we die? Or what do you conclude from this?
You see, the problem here is that we have very fixed societal views about what life and death is. And why? Because for thousands of years, what used to happen was when the heart stopped, people would be permanently dead. There was nothing you could do. You could draw a clear line between when they were alive and they were dead, because the moment the heart stopped, they were lifeless, motionless, the brain would stop working, they would stop breathing, and they would be dead, and they'd be permanently dead. The reality is that science now has gone well into death and into the post-mortem period. And what we've understood that actually is that you can be dead, and I'm not playing with words. I don't mean close to death. I mean really dead and beyond dead in the post-mortem period, and still be brought back to life again. Because the cells in your body do not die the same time that you die. They go into sort of a hibernation state for hours of time. And that during that period, you can be brought back to life, which is why the experiences that people have are truly reflecting the experience of death, not just near death. Now, to your other point that you raise is what on earth is going on? But that's a big question. What is going on with human consciousness? We are all conscious thinking beings. Everyone who listens to this program is thinking and conscious. And the reality is that going back thousands of years to Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and Democritus and all these other great philosophers and Avicenna and great thinkers, people have tried to understand what is it that makes us who we are? How do our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our self come to be? And essentially, there have been two very broad categories of belief system. And these are beliefs. Some people have always believed that, well, somehow, magically, the body, the brain, will generate your thinking, your thoughts, your consciousness. Others have proposed that may not address the problem, because actually, we can now study the brain in great detail. We know how every cell works. We know how the cells connect together. We know how millions and billions of cells connect together. Yet, we cannot find any evidence for how those cells can generate your thoughts. We cannot find how cells can start thinking and feeling. For instance, if I were to show you a brain cell in a laboratory and say, oh, here, this brain cell is now thinking I'm hungry, you'd say, well, that's kind of crazy. It's a brain cell. It produces proteins. It doesn't produce thought. But we are thinking conscious beings. And so I think to sort of go back to the point you raised, what's really remarkable here is that, and our consciousness itself is remarkable. We have things that other animals can't do. We can recite poetry. We can paint. We have people like Beethoven and Mozart, and we can go to the moon and to Mars, and we can cure COVID, and we can tackle even what happens when we die. So our consciousness is quite unique. And I think it's a little bit of a disservice to think that it is simply some sort of byproduct of the brain, a little bit like heat coming off of a fire. That it really oversimplifies what is remarkable about human consciousness, right? So I think the scientific answer that many of us are veering towards is that I think that, and bearing in mind, there is no evidence, right? We're scientists, we need evidence. There is no evidence for how brain cells or millions of brain cells can produce thoughts. And one alternative is that maybe consciousness, the things that makes us who we are, is a separate, undiscovered scientific entity that interacts with the brain in the same way that you need a radio or a TV to decode electromagnetic waves and turn them into sound and picture. But they're not produced by the TV or the radio. And it might be your consciousness is a separate, undiscovered entity that is remarkable and can do all these remarkable things.
Yeah.
And that might be a better explanation.
That's why they call it the mind-body problem, because no one can really, truly solve it, perhaps. Richard Hammond talks about his wife shouting at him.
How to open your car door while submerged underwater. A fatal construction
towards death, and his wife shouted at him and said, "Come back, don't you dare die." You must have seen people in your job have that type of experience, someone saying, "Please don't die," the relatives there, the loved ones around them. Do you feel that there is something that happens when there's a connection between two people that can draw people back? Is that a fair assessment, do you think?
Well, I don't think so. If that was the case, you wouldn't need intensive care doctors like me.
Yeah.
So I think it sounds very nice, and it's wonderful that his wife was screaming at him. It's good to know that your spouse will scream at you even if you're dying for a different reason. That doesn't end, it sounds like. But the reality is that I think and I don't, unfortunately, this video doesn't give details of his medical condition. We don't know what was going on. But the reality is that as people are in a deep coma, if they're starting to wake up, depending on where he was, maybe he was improving and he was actually coming back, that they go into the sort of twilight zone where they can hear things, but they don't process information quite correctly. They're a bit confused. And so it might be that he was having some interaction with his wife, but that was probably later as he was waking up from his coma rather than when he was deep in his coma.
We have to leave it now, Sam, but you're going to go off and treat people in intensive care. How do you go about thinking about that? I mean, does it slightly blow your mind that in half an hour's time, you're going to be the difference between life and death for someone? How do you judge the boundary between the two now when you live it every single day?
I think, truthfully, I think it's a privilege because, you know, we are able to bring life back to people. And then that obviously is an honor and it's a privilege. And we do our best. But what's also remarkable is that, and science has gone through and gone beyond the boundaries of death. And we're exploring what happens to people in that state. And what I think is really happening, which is truly, truly remarkable to me, is I think is as they're going through death, their brain is shutting down. And normally the parts of their brain that are acting like a braking system, it's like an inhibition process that allows them to do what they need to do, pay the bills, pay the mortgage, cook dinner, things that you do in your day-to-day life. Those things that are prominent disappear. It's called the process of disinhibition. Those things go away. And then remarkably, they get access to their entire consciousness, everything they've done, everything that they've said, everything that they've intended. And then they start to analyze themselves based upon morality and ethics. So it really is truly remarkable what is going on when you're going into death. And I think that is something that we're trying to explore further.
Yeah, it's a hell of a...
Thoughts as we wrap up?
There's a lot more to it. The research, they're conducting experiments, such as some of the patients will report, you know, seeing things that they otherwise shouldn't have been able to see while they're laying dead in the operating room, or they're hearing conversations in other parts of the building or even outside of the building. And so some of the researchers will go and they'll find the people that the patient, you know, allegedly had this conversation or listened to the conversations with, and ask them, hey, who were you with? You know, try to have a controlled experiment, you know, to verify, and they would confirm, we were talking about that. How no one else was there? How do you know? You know, because here's dead guy.
Here's my argument: that the guy who writes B34 in the dust on the top of the machine beside the guy who's dying in that, and as he leaves the room, he reads B34. He knows what was on top of it written in dust. And the two people in some other part of the hospital are having a conversation, and it was even on camera. You can watch the conversation, and he obviously was in the midst of death, or she in the throes of death, and experienced their conversation and can recall it correctly. There's always another mind that knew that information existed.
How would they observe it if they were dying, though, or if they were dead on the operating table? How do you watch a camera?
Well, that is the larger question. But just in information theory alone, there's always an intellect that has the information that's gathered.
Okay. That goes back to the decoherence.
Mechanically, how can I explain how that information was gathered by the person in the throes of death or even after death? I'm not even going to try. I have no idea.
Well, again, in the framing, as you put your word, that I would put it in, they've somehow gained access to that decoherence information transfer state post-mortem.
Yes.
They were translated back, you know, as the Bible's word for it. Biblical science is translated, but they're back into the eternal or decoherent state outside of space-time. And then they came back again, and they talked about it.
Yeah, that's one way to say it.
So it's all consistent.
It seems experientially accurate. And what that means exactly, I don't know.
No, I agree. I said, yeah, whether anybody's convinced by it or not, at least it's all consistent.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. And I just, for the audience, want to say that consistency doesn't make something true, but it's a great disproval. If something's inconsistent, it can't be true within itself. Final thoughts, Simos, as I wrap? Put a bow on it as I wrap this up. You're not speaking to my hearing. Simos has a gaming channel.
Sorry. I'm actually gaming right now. But there was two things that struck me about what the doctor said there. or Mr. He might be a surgeon. Is that firstly, he didn't explain what his definition of death was, and secondly, he didn't actually give any coherent explanation of what he thought was going on. He left it in a state of agnosticism in that respect.
Yeah.
So I don't think there was much real information given in the video.
You may have been too busy, but I gleaned necessarily, I think, his definition of death from what he said, which was the following: that the cells are in stasis and communication between cells stops.
Hibernation was his word. Right.
Hibernation.
He made it clear.
Right.
He's not talking about near-death experience. He's talking about post-mortem death.
So no brain activity, no communication between cells. The cells go into preservation or static or hibernation state. I think that's a good definition of death.
Yeah, several hours at a time. It's
Yeah, no, I didn't get that because I could easily see that he may be talking about some deep states of anesthetization. So I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about there.
Fair enough.
And I don't think I'm technically able to really discern what he meant by the words that he used, because I didn't see them as being scientific in the sense of.
I welcome everybody to read the science. It's all throughout a bunch of medical journals. Again, I was following about 15 or so different, and I'm sure there's more now. But the simple fact is that, especially in intensive care units like that guy worked in, they know where death is. They'll do an EKG. They'll do EEGs. There's ways to monitor the electrical impulses of the heart and of the brain. And when they declare death, especially when they're trying to save someone's life, then there's zero brain activity. The brain is dead. It's turned off.
Sure, but we know that, for instance, you can have your heart stop. That's fine. You can restart the heart some minutes later after a thing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you've died or you've been dead. Right? That's just a particular medical state. And the same with the brain, in terms of, we know that you can be put out and go completely unconscious and still be revived and have full consciousness again. So again, I just don't think there was enough explanation there. I'm not saying that what he was trying to say isn't true. I just don't think the information given was particularly full, or at least coherent enough for me to be able to say this is happening. When he says death, it's the same thing. It's the same thing that I think.
The longer you're dead, the longer you're dead, the more time it takes for your cells have to deteriorate and to not be able.
Agreed.
So
agreed.
If you think about it within 10-15 minutes, I think that's more common. But when people are dead for hours at a time and come back still completely themselves, that's
for instance, again, I don't know exactly what he's talking about. This is the problem I was raising. I'm not, a surgeon.
Brother Joel, you're speaking over just a little bit.
Sorry, I'm not a surgeon, and B, I don't understand the way he either used the word death compared to what he's calling death, and that's the disconnect there.
Sure.
For instance, when I spoke to my surgeon who's going to do an operation, he said, look, if things don't work out, we may have to keep you unconscious or anesthetized for some months. It could be up to 6 months, and we'll leave you open on an operating table.
Yeah, but that's different than being brain dead. And I was going to sit the offer.
I know it's different. I know it's
look
different.
At the science, look at the publications. Don't just rely on supposition like this.
Sure, and I know it's different. Of course, that's not what I'm pointing to. What I'm saying is that, for instance, I do not know what that means. Right.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would say, well, you're dead. You're on an operating table. The heart's being kept alive by a machine. It's pumping out artificially. Right. The brain is not responding in any way whatsoever. And yet, obviously, we know at some level it must be, because that's our intuitive response.
No, that's the mystery.
We don't know. And I don't know what that guy is talking about either. Right.
That's fair. But in fairness
where's
to the doctor,
line between what I'm saying and what he's saying? He says, no, I don't mean dead as in near-death experience, I mean dead. But I don't recognize those words then, because I don't know what the difference is.
And in all fairness to the man who was speaking in the video, he was doing an interview to a layman and trying to keep it to where a layman could process and understand. And that's where I'm
Exactly.
at as a layman, and I'm not sure what he meant either.
Yeah, exactly.
Good point.
Exactly. I would completely agree with that. You know,
Well,
or-
so the mystery is there's a mystery in the science. So the like he started with the classic idea that once the brain and the heart stop, it's dead. You don't come back. Well, now people are coming back, and so if anything confirms, biblical science, like in the Book of Joel, where it talked about in the end times, people would more often raise from the dead. So that's what's happening, literally, and it's being scientifically studied.
right. Again, that's just
It's
for
fascinating.
me. That's not going to cut it for me because I don't understand what's meant by dead in that case.
Well,
And
Right.
that's it.
so that doesn't.
Well, it's all about thought. Sorry, guys, I have to go to the bathroom. So I've held out as long as I can. Just about. I got
There was
maybe 2
one
more
other
minutes.
point which I just want to add on quickly. In which case, it's just to say he didn't obviously come up with some kind of answer of what is happening. He just said left it as a mystery, and so I don't think
Right.
there's anything to be gleaned at the end from what
They're
he said,
observing.
other
They're
than
observing
maybe
it.
more information is needed. So I would say
And
that.
good
Well,
for
Richard, I
that.
would love to keep going, buddy.
Let's individually look at these things, study and think about it. It's at least thought provoking, and that's the best I can hope for right now. Simos has a gaming channel. Check him out. What's the name of it, Simos? Or not? And Joel, are you doing any live content right now?
Not
Sorry,
really.
I'm muted.
I was
I'm
going to
muted
offer,
again.
Richard. You want to go pee and then keep talking, or do you need to go for the day?
No, I need to go. There's other things.
Understood. I love talking with you, buddy.
Gaming
Yeah.
channel, Simos, real quick.
Simos Funk at Simos Funk.
At Simos Funk. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your participation, patience with me, and patience with each other. Thank you so much to everyone in the side chat. Until next time, I want you to know that I look forward to the day that we're all in heaven and great permanent friends. Peace and respect to you all. Have a great day.
You too, buddy.